welcome back everyone. I hope you enjoyed part 1 of our discussion on post-colonial poetry. In part 1, we explored the basic concepts of post-colonial poetry, a powerful medium where writers reclaim voices, express cultural identity and challenge colonial narratives, as well as the introduction, significance of the title and critical analysis of the poem, A Far Cry from Africa. Now, in part 2, we will continue our journey by focusing on the thematic analysis and literary devices used in the poem by Walcott. Let's move to the themes. Number 1 theme is colonialism and divided identity. A Far Cry from Africa responds to the Mau Mau uprising, a rebellion fought by the native Kenyans against the British colonial army in the mid-20th century. The British response to the rebellion was even more brutal. Usually identified closely with Walcott himself, the speaker is painfully divided between his connections to the English as well as to the colonized people of Africa. In fact, the poem implicitly argues that a confused identity and the anxiety it causes is one of the painful legacies of colonialism. How can I face such slaughter and be cool? How can I turn from African and live? These lines from the poem embody the speaker's internal division between England and Africa, laying out the two sides as diametrically opposed choices. The speaker feels that the violence of the Mau Mau rebellion requires a decisive response. Either one must condemn the Mau Mau and side with England, or support the Mau Mau rebellion and forsake England entirely. Accept the violence of the Mau Mau rebellion as necessary to Kenyan independence, or reject such violence, and in the process reject Africa and all connection to the colonized people. The speaker is suspended between these two options, unable to choose as he has a link to both English colonists and colonized Africans. In the third stanza of the poem, the speaker addresses this problem explicitly. He says, "I who am poisoned with the blood of both, where shall I turn, divided to the wind?" Although the speaker has the blood of both Europeans and Africans, this heritage also poisons the speaker because the speaker feels divided to the wind. No matter which way the speaker turns, it is as if half the speaker's blood does violence to the other half. At the end of the poem, the speaker is no closer to choosing a side than at the beginning. Colonial history has forced the speaker into this situation, forever divided by colonizer and colonized. The second theme is language as a tool of resistance and self-expression. The poem explores the complex relationship between colonized people and the language that they are often pushed to adopt. In this case, it is English. The poem, by its very existence, also illustrates how one may find a mean of resistance and self-expression while using the language of an oppressor. The poem implies that language is closely linked to the identity and heritage. The speaker hates English colonial rule and wants to support the independence of Africa. Yet, the speaker feels that such support means rejecting the English language, the very language the poem is written in, and which is also a part of the speaker's identity and means of expressing himself. In fact, the speaker expresses love for the English tongue. This passion makes a lot of sense if the speaker is interpreted as someone from a British colony, as Walcott himself was. He grew up on the Caribbean islands of Santa Lucia. Rather than finding a resolution to this conflict, the speaker lingers in the painful contradictions of a divided identity. using eloquent English and a fluent attitude towards traditional form to address the sufferings that colonization has caused. The third theme is violence and humanity. Much of the imagery in A Far Cry from Africa depicts violence. This imagery refers to the brutal tactics employed by British forces in Kenya, as well as the acts that the Mau Mau used in their rebellion. While the speaker understands that British colonial rule is ultimately the source of this violence, the poem also laments the bloodiness of human affairs more generally. To the speaker, the violence of the Mau Mau also seems reprehensible. Violence begets violence in this poem, leaving the speaker pessimistic about ever achieving humanity's higher ideals. For instance, the wild child hacked in the bed refers to one of the most notorious acts of the uprising, when a European family, including a 6-year-old boy, was hacked to death on their farm by the Mau Mau rebellers. The Mau Mau often used tactics like this, targeting both white settlers and loyalist Kenyans, those Kenyans who supported British rule. In response, however, the British killed vastly more people and employed brutally repressive tactics, such as the resettlement of natives and forced labor camps. That's why the speaker thinks the British see Kenyans as savages, expendable as Jews. In this damning comparison, the British colonists are no better than Nazis. The speaker's outlook on humanity's use of violence then is bleak. The violence continues to produce more violence, advancing neither the cause of human divinity nor the African freedom. After the thematic analysis, let's move to the literary devices. Number one is irony. It means to the contradictory meanings of the words used in different contexts. For example, the words such as upright man seeks by divinity his by inflicting pain shows how an upright man seeking divinity when he wants to cause pain to other. This is an apparent example of irony. Second is metaphor. It is a figure of speech in which an implied comparison is made between objects that are different in nature. The poet used different metaphors, such as the kernel of carrion is a worm in military towns. Number three is rhetorical questions. It means to use questions not to elicit answers but to stress the main idea. The poem shows the use of rhetorical questions at the end of the first and the third stanzas, such as, between this Africa and the English tongue alove, betray them both or give back what they give. How can I face such slaughter and be cool? How can I turn from Africa and live? Number four is the symbolism that signify ideas and qualities, giving them symbolic meanings that are different from the literal meanings. The poem shows symbols such as bloodstream, dead, corpses, and hacked to show the bloodbath continuing after the civil war of rebellion. After this, let's talk about the form of the poem. The poem consists of 3 stanzas, where the first stanza has 10 lines, and the second one has 11 lines, and the third stanza has 12 lines. The poem, though not a perfect verse, does not have a regular rhyme. Let's move to the conclusion of the entire poem. Post-colonial poetry operates not merely as a remembrance of colonial trauma, but as an evolving discourse that engages with the present and projects into the future. It functions as a site of resistance and renewal, challenging persistent structures of global inequality, while simultaneously affirming the richness of hybrid identities and the resilience of cultures that once faced silences. Derek Walcott's poem, A Far Cry from Africa, encapsulates these concerns with striking poignancy. The poem confronts the historical brutality of imperialism and the equally violent responses it provoked, refusing to simplify the moral complexities of colonial encounters. At its core, it lies Walcott's deeply personal conflict, torn between his African heritage and his European lineage, a struggle that mirrors the fractured consciousness of colonized people who find themselves unable to choose one identity without betraying the other. This unresolved tension, left deliberately open at the poem's conclusion, highlights the enduring ambivalence of post colonial existence. By articulating the pain of divided loyalties while simultaneously asserting the impossibility of resolution, Walcott demonstrates how post colonial literature not only memorializes wounds of the past, but also interrogates questions of identity, belonging, and justice in the contemporary world. Ultimately, such poetry underscores the necessity of recognizing complexity over closure, reminding readers that the legacy of colonialism continues to reverberate across histories, geographies, and generations. Thank you so much for staying engaged, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts on the poem A Far Cry from Africa by Derek Walcott in our discussion forum. Thank you and Allah Hafiz.